All right, everybody. We've been trying to do this interview with Bill Goodman all day long today. We're having so many audio problems. You know, Bill, it's got to be. Let me bring you up on the screen here. Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service in Upton on Long Island, which is what, about 15 miles east of here? 20 miles?
Yeah, I think so.
All
Not that
right.
I'm at work right now. I've been off all this week.
Good for you. Enjoying the holidays. All right, so you know what? I'm going to start this a little differently, and as I said, it's Flannel Friday, so Bill's got
Yeah.
his on, and I got mine on. So uh, this is the first storm of the season, the full storm system that we're dealing with of the season,
hmm
and one of the things that gets used a lot and passed along a lot in social media are the those snowfall forecast maps, and some of them are putting out some crazy numbers sometimes, and people go off the deep end. Do you and there's different kinds. There's the positive snow growth, and then there's the was it the Kuchera snow
hmm
map. I mean, are they? I don't know that they're that useful as tools. I really don't. I kind of did it the old-fashioned way, where I would kind of figure out how much precip was going to fall, and figure out whether I thought it would be, what I thought the snow ratio would be, and come up with some numbers. I don't know. I think these snow maps make kind of create anxiety maybe where they need where it's not needed. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean they're imperfect. They can't take into account every single thing. When we're really making a serious snowfall forecast, we're really looking at things from top down. Do you have a moist enough column where you'll have ice nucleation? If your moisture is confined to the lowest levels, you may not even have that, and you might get low snow ratios. You might even get freezing drizzle at times. So I mean, there's a whole host of things, and those things are very simplified to I guess to make the guidance easier to understand. But I mean that far out, when we're looking at something 3 to 5 days out. I'm probably just thinking no more than 10 or 11 to 1, because that's really the climatology for our area. And sometimes even if in a marginal situation, maybe only 8 to 1. Not going crazy with snow ratios this early.
All right, so let me go through a couple of things here, and you tell me what you think, whether you agree or disagree with this. So hang on one second. I'm going to switch over. We got a couple of different maps that I pulled up. So I pulled up. I'm a fan of the Weather Prediction Center from WPC. I think they do a pretty good job. I'm often amazed sometimes when they do their 7-day rainfall maps that if you look at the map, I always say that you can get a really good feel of what's actually going on in terms of on the surface by just looking at where all the rainfall is and how they have it lined up. So they have. I'm looking at now. This forecast was issued before the morning model cycle run was even done. So we've got so from 1421Z, which was what 921 this morning. I'm looking at the 72-hour probability of at least an inch. The 10% line, northern Nassau, northwestern Suffolk, to about crossing New York City, down to about where the Jersey Turnpike runs for draw a line from Staten Island to Trenton. That's where they have 10%. And in North Jersey, Sussex County, 50% chance of at least an inch. Putnam, Westchester line northward, and in Connecticut north of 95. This is pretty much covers only what happens Sunday into Sunday night. Uh, what do you think? Sounds good to you?
Yeah, I guess that's reasonable. One area where I think there's where the national centers do struggle is when you have marginal temperature situations. I think we saw that back on last November 15th. There are other times, so you got to be careful. I mean, where I think where we're definitely going to be cold enough for snow. I think they're very good. Where things are more marginal, that's where we tend to. That's where our local expertise tends to come in. We know, we know what can happen in these situations, either Adjusting temperatures, maybe more toward the wet bulb temperature, or maybe taking into account where coastal fronts can set up and keep the flow off the land. That happens in Connecticut quite a bit, sometimes on Long
Right.
Island. So, yeah, a little bit trickier as you get closer to the coast.
Okay, so you saw the models this morning and from last night. The NAM, the GFS, the European. I even looked at the Canadian today. I was that desperate. But which oddly enough, the Canadian model I've noticed over the last few days has been very consistent with what it's been showing in terms of how the primary low coming into the lower lakes and redeveloping off the Delaware, New Jersey coast. It's had a colder look to it all along. I've heard the argument made that the Canadian may handle blocking in the North Atlantic better than the other models. Do you think that that's the case or no?
I don't know. To me, a lot of times the Canadians, the squirrel the blind squirrel that finds the nut. Maybe I'll use it as a tiebreaker in a situation where, if anything, I think the regional Canadian, as we're getting closer to event, I've seen that do fairly well.
The RGM does tend to do pretty well. I agree with you on that. So I got the dam up. We've got freezing precip moving. It looks like a fair amount of freezing precip actually moving across Pennsylvania, reaching southeast PA Sunday at about 7 a.m. Looks like the precip makes it to New York City between 7 and 10. And you got this narrow band of snow with some sleet, freezing rain, and then rain as you go to central and southern New Jersey south. Do you think it's just a quick burst for a couple of hours? You get a coating to an inch or so along the coast, and or maybe even a little bit less in some places, and perhaps a bit more in inland spots, a few inches possible. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I noticed that the GFS really doesn't have that much until Monday, but that taking that with a grain of salt. I think sometimes it starts off a little bit too warm. So I think the NAM usually does better with when we have precip coming in with cooling things the way that closer to reality.
All right.
So yeah, maybe a quick burst of snow, more so inland just because it'll be colder, and then as we warm up aloft, probably go into rain at the coast, and then freezing rain or sleet inland.
This first shot looks like it's mostly done by about, I don't know, 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. And the other thing I noticed is, at least for the Hudson Valley, for Connecticut, looks like the sleet rain line barely makes it to northern Westchester County, southern Putnam County, somewhere between 287 and 84, and it comes to a grinding halt. And now, as we move into Monday, you've got this coastal low developing, and all the cold air collapses. How in a situation like this, because you have a deep upper low, the upper air system is so vigorous, and I'm going to jump over to that. I got the NAM up here. You see how the precip changes over to snow Monday morning by between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. just about everywhere, and then it really gets going late in the afternoon and evening. The upper low here in this particular case, this is not a simple matter of just an area of precip with a wave develop a front or something that's rolling right along, where everything is sort of progressing along. This is a really vigorous upper low here. Is this not an instance where somebody on the back side of this, on the northwest or west side of the upper low track, winds up with a heavier snowfall? And this would be for later Monday and into Monday night.
Yeah. Actually, one storm that's been popping in my mind with this is I got to open up the history books a little. Christmas Day, I think 2002.
I can do that. Hang on one second. I can do that. So let's do that. WPC's got the interactive Zoom map, and it's got a calendar on it, and I think it goes back that far. 2002. We'll go to December, Christmas Day. I got the surface map up for 12Z on Christmas Day, December 25th. And I remember that was, it wound up changing over to snow late in the afternoon and evening. I was up in Westchester County, and we wound up with about maybe half a foot in a lot of places. I forgot what we got here on Long Island out of that in our neck of the woods in Suffolk County. But I remember having to drive that night to WPIX, and until I got into Manhattan, into the Bronx itself, the south part of the Bronx, it was I was driving in zero visibility and heavy snow. But there's a primary low. There's a 95 low in eastern Ohio. You have a secondary that forms just northeast of Norfolk. 993 pressure there. You've got the air around it to the north is not especially cold. You've got readings. You have to go way up into upstate New York or northern New England to find anything in terms of temperatures in the teens. And I'm just going to roll this map along. The coastal low actually was just inland, a 980 low in southern New Jersey, west of Atlantic City, and became a 76 low east of Sandy Hook and passed just south of Long Island, but very, very tight here.
Yeah. I mean, during the evening, I remember it changed to snow on the backside. I was down in central New Jersey at the time, but even down there were a couple inches of slushy snow, and we were at my brother's for Christmas Day, and family members who had to go farther north, they were headed right into the mess. It was not a fun ride home for them.
Now, this to me, I made the argument about if you seasonally adjust this out about a week to 10 days from now, when the normals are about 3 or 4 degrees lower, those 3 to 4 degrees are pretty important. And I'm just looking at some of the temperatures around this to the west. They're actually fairly cold. They're in the teens and 20s. I don't know if we're going to... Well, we might have some colder air that's going to bleed down on the backside coming down from eastern Canada. That I don't know if it'll bring it down on Monday, probably down near or just below freezing. But it does on the surface at least look fairly similar. I can't pull up the upper air on this, but it does look fairly similar. The low goes out to Cape Cod, and... that's that. So I can put these analogs out sometimes, but they're never exact. That's the problem with them.
No, they're not. The one thing about that event, which I think is probably going to be true for this one, is where's the banding going to set up on the backside of this? How intense is it going to be? Is it, in that event in December 2002? I don't think anyone anticipated that. I think it was more in the interior Northeast where heavy snowfall was really anticipated well, but not so much as you went farther south toward the city, and
right.
So that could be the surprise that you were talking about earlier. Could there be a surprise with this event? That could be it.
Okay, I'm looking at the European. I got this, showing the upper air right now. The upper low drops from northwestern Illinois into southern West Virginia. Looks like, we can't see the in-betweens. The GFS takes it over Chesapeake Bay and then winds it up, close to Cape Cod or Nantucket by Tuesday morning. The European is about the same with that. The surface on the European was, I thought maybe it was a tad further south than what the GFS has. I also noticed that the European, by the way, has been noticeably, a little bit colder than the other models. I'm not, oftentimes I find the European likes to be a little bit warmer than the other models. But in this particular instance, it looks to me like it was maybe a shade colder. I don't know if you agree with me on that. It's okay if you disagree, by the way.
Yeah, I'll agree with you. And it's funny. Usually the GFS is the one with slight cold bias, at least aloft.
Yeah,
it tends to be too warm at the surface. So
that's why I'm kind of feeling a little bit cautious. I've got the European snowfall forecast map because everybody is in love with the European. This is courtesy, by the way, of pivotalweather.com, providing us access to some pretty great, some really good-looking graphics. And you've got... Now, these are combined numbers that I have on today's run, which are about half of what they were showing yesterday. We're seeing some pretty big amounts up in the Hudson Valley around Albany, close to 20 inches in some places. And I know you sent me those, the Kuchera maps.
Hmm.
Do you know what the difference is between what factors are used in the Kuchera maps that make them a little different from the standard 10-1?
I
I
think,
don't know too much about it.
yeah, I'm trying to remember myself. I think it looks for the warmest temperature that it can find below 500 millibars, and comes up with a snow ratio based on that. So probably 10 to 1 for, if the coldest temperature is 32, let's say, and then just progressively higher as you go, as you go colder than that, and of course warmer. You probably drop off by the time if you have if you have your warmest temperature, say in the mid 30s, you're probably down to almost nothing in terms of snow ratio. So, I mean, like I said, as I said earlier, that's kind of simplistic because it can overreact to shallow warm layers. It doesn't know that maybe there's mid-level moisture lacking, and maybe you wouldn't have as high snow ratios. So it's imperfect.
Right.
You still gotta look at these things with a fine-tooth comb when you get closer to an event.
All right. The European kind of looks like the Nam in a lot of ways in terms of the precip shield.
Hmm.
It's generating. I don't know how much of this is sleet in terms of total amounts. It actually has a stripe of 6 inches plus along the north shore of Long Island and across New Jersey north of 78. Gives about 6 in New York City. Amounts tail off as you go south from Central Ocean County southwest to northern Delaware. That's kind of where the southern edge of about an inch is. Does the forget the numbers for a moment, but in terms of the look of where you've got all this precip, all this snow. I mean, is it realistic? Is it too high? Should we be cutting these numbers in half? What's your feeling on that?
Well, maybe not in half. I know this early in the game, I'm probably blending some of the GFS numbers are lower, but they're probably too low. So
Right.
maybe I'm like 2 to 1 in favor of what the European is doing, and even then, just being a little bit conservative, just because I don't want to be accused of being a snow goose. Just to take off a little personal bias there, and so I mean, I think when you do that, maybe the numbers aren't bad, but maybe they're a little bit too high. So with that in mind, maybe those places on the North Shore that where you see the model spitting out 6 inches, maybe it's going to be more like 4 or 5. So, really just shaving off maybe 20% from the totals that I see the European coming up with.
All right. I have. I'm going to bring up the Nam snow map. Actually, the new Nam is starting, but um, I don't think we're going to be. We're going to have to stream for another hour to get the whole thing, and I don't think we want to do that. But just off the old Nam run, if you look at the numbers on the old Nam run, it actually now here the problem with looking at these snow maps on a straight 10-1. It says include. These numbers supposedly include sleet, and the Nam's got a stripe of 1 foot plus the northeast corner of Pennsylvania, northwest Jersey, Hudson Valley, along and just north of Route 84 into northwest Connecticut. But it's got every bit of maybe the southern edge of 6, back down to about western Long Island to the city, and then in New Jersey along and northwest of the Turnpike. But how much of this is sleet? How much of this is freezing rain? That's my issue with this. The other question I have for you: what do you think of the total precip amounts? Because the Nam is actually generating a fair amount of precip, on the order of an inch to an inch and a half in some places. Do you think that's reasonable for the whole event?
Well, one thing I notice about that model is, like when you mentioned those higher amounts, that tends to be what ends up in the best banding. So maybe that's more. So someone could see that, but it's going to be more concentrated, and I wouldn't go out on a limb and forecast that for everybody.
Could we wind
So
up? You think we could wind up with a deeper low than what's being modeled?
possibly, I think the fact that it was vertically stacked right away is when this thing is moving off the coast is maybe why it maybe just the maybe it doesn't really get much of a chance to really get going before that happens. That's the only
Right.
reason I can think right off the bat why.
And just to explain to everybody, when we talk about a system being vertically stacked, when you look at the different levels, the surface 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet, 18,000 feet, the lows are virtually on top of each other. And sometimes when you get a system that's intense enough, you can get one of those comma heads you see them on the satellite, and if you're sitting under that comma head, you get murdered with precip. And either side of that, you get far less.
Well, exactly, and that could happen on Monday, and that's why those maybe those some of the higher amounts that we're seeing the models forecasting, those might be localized amounts in places that get the heavier bands, and it's just way too early to say where those are going to be. I mean, the NAM is farther south with them all together compared to the other model guides. The European looks like it's more inland. When we're talking 3 to 5 days out, I wouldn't try to pinpoint that at all. It's just too early.
Okay, so I'm gonna just pull some. I'm gonna do something here really quick. So hang on one second, because I didn't get a chance to do this earlier, and I'm gonna take you off cam. You're there, but you're just not gonna be on camera.
Okay.
The FOOS numbers. Now, I'm an old school guy. Joe Rayo and I, we would always do the FOOS together, and take a look at what it's.
Is that a new dance? You doing the foos?
Be nice, be nice. So I know if the people are right now are seeing the FOOS actually on the screen. It looks like a whole bunch of numbers piled on top of each other, but believe it or not, there's a way to make sense of this. And for example, in New York City on Sunday, by Sunday 1 o'clock, the 14 hundredths of liquid has fallen at LaGuardia. The vertical motion is not too shabby. It's not high. It's plus 2.3. The temperatures at the levels though are pretty close. +1, -1, +1. They're like right borderline there.
Mm-hmm.
And the thickness is up at 549, and that drops a little bit between 1 and 7. You get another 0.3 of an inch of liquid. Then the atmosphere at the bottom level, it's 03, 03, 03. 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. So that kind of says to me that you get a quick burst of snow. Maybe somebody winds up with a coating to an inch or so, a little bit more inland, of course, and then you go over to sleet and freezing rain. How long, for inland areas, if you go over to sleet and some freezing rain, you think it's going to be enough to cause any kind of serious icing?
If it falls on top of snow, maybe that's not going to be a big deal. So that could be a saving grace if we do get an inch or two of snow first. If it was freezing rain straight out from the get go, that would be more of a problem.
Okay. Any ideas on the long range? Have you looked, or are you really taking your vacation as a vacation?
No, I got to draw the line somewhere.
No,
Although actually, I think I did. I mean, it looks like we stay cold for a while. At least I think in the next, the better part of the next 10
colder than average
10 days. I think I remember noticing that much, but I didn't see if we had any more storms in the pipeline after.
It didn't look like there was anything. From the problem is, for at least for me, whenever there's something like this front and center, I really can't spend the time looking at anything beyond what's right in front of me. So
yeah, and we usually don't at the forecast office either. It's all hands on deck. You gotta take care of what's right in front of you.
Exactly. You think there's more room? Just going back to this storm, we could probably wrap this up. Do you think there's room here that we could wind up with, surprises? If you had to guess if there's going to be a surprise, which way would you lean, up or down?
Oh, with this event?
Yeah.
I'd lean up, but I don't know where. It all depends where this banding sets up. It could be it could be anywhere in the area. Our old Weather Service buddy Tony Gigi used to say there's always a surprise underneath an upper low. So that this might be one of those situations where
I agree with I agree with Tony. When you get these upper lows that like this, so vigorous. You can get some weird things to happen, and sometimes one of those things could be that it winds up, the cooling that occurs late Sunday night and Monday winds up happening faster than what you might think, and getting maybe further south than what you might think.
Well, yeah, the cooling could be quicker, of course, when you have that cooling taking place off to off to the east, there's probably going to be better banding, snow banding taking place. So it's a combination of features. Yeah, it doesn't matter what time of year, whether it's the middle of summer or the middle of winter. They're they give us surprises and not always pleasant ones. So
Hey, one question, because we're coming up on almost the time that the forecasts are going to be going out. Well, two-parter. So, what do you think? It's Friday night going into a holiday weekend. I mean, continuing long holiday weekend. Sunday being a big travel day. Do we have preemptive advisories that go up? Preemptive winter storm watches up that go up? Inland or further north and west. What do you think? Or do they wait till Saturday morning?
oh, I don't know. I don't know. Those things have tended not to those things have tended not to work out too well because it seems like, especially with a holiday weekend, most of the people making the big decisions might be off. So I really don't know if we'd approach, at least on this holiday weekend, if I can't speak for what's going on at the forecast office,
Right.
but
No, I understand that, and I'm not asking WW. What would WWWD, which is what would William do? And I'm not going to put you on the spot, but a couple people were asking me, and I don't know what the criteria is. How many boxes do you check off before you hit the go button on an advisory versus a winter storm watch? And one other question that one of my regulars was asking me. So that, years ago we used to have the heavy snow warning, okay,
Mhm.
and then they switched it over to the winter storm warning. And I just seem to recall it kind of jarred a memory in my head. Back a couple of years ago when they got rid of the blizzard watch.
Mhm.
Now that that's a little bit of time has passed, they made a few adjustments with those watches and warnings and that sort of thing. I mean, has it worked out okay? Have there been any issues with regards to it? Is the less confusion, more confusion? I happen to think that getting rid of the blizzard watch was a good thing, by the way.
Well, yeah, the B word sends people into a panic. That's the funny thing is, about a year after that decision was made, I was at something. I ran into the director of the weather service at an event, and I joked with him. I said, why'd you get rid of the blizzard watch? We were pretty good at it in the New York area. We had one event where we weren't so good, and then we had to get rid of it entirely.
Oh, there was a
But yeah, it
stretch there.
does.
There was a stretch there where it was like it was the every other. It seemed like you go back to not too many winters ago, in some of the more active ones, that it suddenly became was like the every other day blizzard warning that was up. And I mean they were justified because of the kind of winters we had in 13, 14, 14, 15, and a few others. Yeah, I agree with you. It worked, and even in the time that it didn't work, as I recall, it did work for half the area,
Hmm.
as I remember.
Yeah, that one event where it didn't work. That was a March event, and right away you're in the month
Right.
of March. You're playing with warm air somewhere, and that's where we got burned with that event. It ended up being a sleet storm for Long Island for a good part, but as soon as you went like into Westchester, Connecticut, the
You didn't even have to go that far. If you went up to the North Bronx, there was a foot of snow on the ground. So yeah. I mean, it made. I think I've always thought that the biggest issue here was the fact that somewhere along the line, the word blizzard got equated with heavy snows of a foot plus, and we got away. The original definition. It's really more of a visibility wind event, and not necessarily heavy snow that's actually falling. At least, and then there was a temperature component to it. So the blizzard warning was rarely used here because of that, and I think I don't know. My own feeling is that the word just kind of got associated with an out and out nor'easter, 1 to 2 foot plus snowstorm, rather than the traditional way.
yeah. Well, most of the time those big storms do have a lot of wind, and there are visibility issues. I guess the last good one, 2016, the historic one for the city. That was when that came in. That was just blizzard right from the start, and
Right.
it blizzard conditions 12 hours, Long Island, and even parts of the city.
Correct.
That
All
was the
right.
real deal.
Okay, so you know what? We tried to do this like what 4 times today. We finally got it right, so I'm happy. The audio's good. Awesome. So as always, you always have an open door on my on my channel, and
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a long time. We finally got this together. Three
yes,
Three
I got a
times
new.
the
I
charm.
have a new laptop now, so and I'm also having to deal with the evil Windows 10, which loves to reset to defaults at night while you're asleep. But all right, great. It's done. We got it. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it, and we'll have you again. We'll have you on again real soon.
Sure. I guess we can talk more long range once we get through this event.
Okay.
I do have some thoughts about that. We'll save them for another time. If
By the way, do you have your camera on? Can you see me?
Can I see you? No, I can't. I can see
But
too
you
much of
saw
me
me
right
before.
now.
You saw me before. Did you notice that I grow? I got my goatee's grown in.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, it's Flannel Friday.
It's flannel Friday. Friday. We both have this, sort of a semi-serial killer look here, working. So I'm glad to hear your Thanksgiving was good. I know you said you were stuck in traffic. Hope the rest of your holiday weekend is good and your vacation is good. And we'll since we live nearby, we have to meet up for easy cup of coffee if it works for you.
That
Is it?
sounds great to me. Yeah, today's my holiday from the holiday. Yesterday, the driving yesterday was crazy.
All right. All right, Bill. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you guys later tonight. Got the regular YouTube live stream at 7 o'clock, and we're going to have as soon as I see what the weather service does with their forecast, we'll have the new stuff up on the website. Have a great rest of your afternoon.